What made the Roman army so deadly, even in sieges far from Rome? That's the question at the heart of this video. When we talk about the Roman siege of Jotapata in 67 AD, we're looking at more than just one battle in the First Jewish-Roman War. It's about a clash between engineering, discipline, and artillery versus fierce determination and leadership. Rome didn't just smash cities randomly. They planned, adapted, and used every tool they had to break resistance. Hello, we are Heroic History, your daily history channel, bringing you 30 minutes of history every day. If you want to help decide what appears next on this channel, don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. So today, we'll dive into the siege of Jotapata, exploring the city's defenses, the Jewish fighters under Josephus, the deadly Roman Ballista, and how political and strategic factors made this siege one of the most famous examples of Roman military power. From 1992 to 2000, archaeologists led by Morai Avam undertook an ambitious project to uncover what remained of this town, revealing a mix of civilian life, fortifications, and evidence of intense combat. The findings allow us to see Jotapata not only as a location of historical significance, but also as a case study in ancient warfare and urban defense. First, what exactly was Jotapata? Jotapata, known in Hebrew as Yodfat, was not a particularly large city by ancient standards. It was a hilltop fortress town about 12 acres in Lower Galilee, roughly 6 to 9 kilometers north of Cephas. The town sat on a rocky ridge at an elevation of about 419 meters above sea level. Deep ravines surrounded it on 3 sides, which made it naturally difficult to attack. The only relatively accessible approach was a narrow northern slope. Archaeologists uncovered evidence of daily life that paints a picture of a vibrant community disrupted by conflict. Residential structures with courtyards, stone-paved floors, and storage bins were discovered. There were workshops for pottery production, oil lamps, and everyday tools, indicating that Yodfat was a functioning town with local industries and a civilian population. The juxtaposition of these civilian artifacts with the brutal evidence of combat provides a striking contrast, illustrating the human dimension behind historical events. Ancient historian Josephus, who later commanded the defenders, describes it as almost impregnable due to this geography. He was young at the time, about 30 years old, but he had studied in Rome and understood Roman methods. His leadership combined both religious motivation and military pragmatism. The defenders were mostly Jewish rebels from Galilee. Josephus reportedly managed to gather around 40,000 people in Jotapata, though this number included not just fighters, but also civilians who had fled from surrounding villages. Armed defenders were fewer, likely around 6,000 to 7,000 men. Still, their morale was high, and their determination to resist Rome was fueled by the belief that they were fighting for survival and for their faith. Josephus reinforced the city's defenses by building additional walls and organizing the population to resist a Roman siege. Modern archaeological excavations confirm these accounts, revealing strong stone walls, underground cisterns, and remnants of fortifications designed to make assaults extremely difficult. The excavations led by Avium revealed a layered history of fortifications. The earliest walls, dating to the Hasmonean period 1st century BC, were built around the summit with watchtowers and stone barriers. Later walls from the late Hasmonean and early Roman periods were added, reflecting continuous investment in defense. By the early 1st century AD, the final city walls enclosed an area of about 47 dunams, roughly 12 acres. These walls were sometimes built hastily, lacking full foundations in places, suggesting a rush to prepare the town for the imminent Roman siege. Beyond just the walls, Avon team uncovered casemates, small vaulted chambers integrated into the fortifications and cisterns for water storage. These features gave defenders a tactical advantage, allowing them to shelter, store resources, and fire upon attackers while remaining protected. The archaeological evidence matches. Josephus' written account of the defenders using the high ground and fortifications to repel Roman advances. The natural terrain of Jotapata gave the defenders confidence. Roman soldiers would have to climb uphill under missile fire to reach the walls, while the defenders could rain down stones, arrows, and boiling oil. Why did the Romans care so much about Jotapata? After the Jewish revolt began in 66 AD, the Roman Emperor Nero dispatched one of his most capable generals, Vespasian, to crush the uprising. The strategic importance of Jotapata lay in its position. Galilee was the first line of organized Jewish resistance against the Roman reconquest of Judea, a hub for rebel operations in Galilee. If Jotapata fell, the surrounding cities would be demoralized, and the Romans would secure a base of operations deeper into Jewish territory. This is exactly why Vespasian decided to besiege it early in the campaign. He wanted a quick and decisive victory that would demonstrate the futility of resisting Rome. Taking it would also allow Rome to secure supply lines, weaken local resistance, and demonstrate the futility of defiance. Led by Vespasian, an experienced general, and his son Titus, who would later become emperor, the Romans brought with them about 60,000 troops, including 3 full legions: Legio V Macedonica, Legio Zritensis, Legio XV Apollinaris. According to Josephus' own account, though this figure might include not just legionaries, but auxiliaries and supporting personnel, even if we take the lower estimate, the Romans outnumbered the defenders by at least 2 to 1, and probably more. Legio V Macedonica, battle-hardened from campaigns in Macedonia and Galilee, excelled at navigating the hilly terrain and coordinating complex siege operations. Legio's fences trained for fast, flexible assaults and skilled with siege engines like Ballista and Onagar, took the lead in precision strikes on defenders atop the walls. Legio Coindasium Apollinaris, known for discipline and endurance, kept the line secure, protected supply routes, and sustained the 47-day siege without faltering. Together, these legions formed a well-oiled machine. The experienced troops of V Macedonica pushed forward to set up siege towers. Fences operators targeted defenders with bolts and stones, and Apollinaries ensured continuous pressure on Jotapata's walls. But the Romans came prepared. Vespasian deployed his legions with characteristic order. They built camps, dug trenches, and constructed siege ramps. They also brought their artillery, the ballistae and catapults that could hurl heavy stones or shoot massive iron bolts with deadly precision. Josephus describes how the defenders were struck down by these weapons. He writes that Roman Ballista could launch stones weighing 75 pounds, about 34 kilograms, and these stones could crush multiple men at once. Bolts fired from these machines could pierce armor, shields, and even pin several fighters together. One can imagine the psychological impact. Defenders watching their comrades literally nailed to walls or smashed to pieces by stones falling from the sky. The siege itself lasted for 47 days. This was not a quick assault, but a drawn-out battle of attrition. The Romans methodically tightened their grip, using siege engines to pound the walls while their infantry advanced under cover. Titus reportedly led several daring attacks himself, earning admiration from his soldiers. Inside, Josephus and his men tried sorties, sudden seize from the gates to burn Roman siege works. Sometimes they succeeded, but Roman discipline always reasserted itself. Slowly the Romans built their siege ramp higher, bringing their battering rams and towers closer. By the end, the walls of Jotapata were breached. On the 47th day, the Romans stormed the city. What followed was a massacre. Josephus claims that 40,000 people were killed and 1,200 taken prisoner. He himself famously hid in a cave with 40 other rebels. When they decided to commit suicide rather than surrender, Josephus managed to survive by persuading one companion to join him in surrendering, taken captive. He later prophesied that Vespasian would become emperor, a prophecy that reportedly saved his life and gave him special status as a Roman advisor. So, now that you know why Jotapata was such a big deal, the next question is, what exactly did the Romans bring to break down those walls? That's where one of Rome's deadliest weapons comes in, the ballista. Unlike ordinary catapults or onagers, the ballista was essentially a giant crossbow that used torsion power, twisted ropes or sinew to hurl projectiles with both precision and force. This made it a key component of Roman siege tactics, especially during assaults on fortified towns like Jotapata. The ballista's design relied on two pairs of twisted cords, usually made from animal sinew, wound tightly around a wooden frame. When the arms of the ballista were drawn back, the torsion stored energy much like a massive spring. Releasing the arms converted that stored energy into a powerful forward thrust capable of sending iron-tipped bolts or heavy stones flying across hundreds of meters. Large versions of the weapon could fire projectiles up to 500 meters with remarkable accuracy, which was far superior to the range and precision of typical catapults or onagers. While catapults relied on a weighted arm to fling stones, they lacked the pinpoint accuracy of a ballista. Onagers with their single heavy arm could hurl enormous stones, but controlling the direction was tricky and unpredictable. The Scorpio, essentially a smaller, more portable ballista, allowed a single operator to shoot bolts quickly, but at a reduced scale and range. One of the ballista's most important features was versatility in ammunition. It could shoot giant iron or wooden bolts, capable of penetrating wooden gates or armor, as well as stones heavy enough to smash walls or towers. The combination of range and penetration made it the weapon of choice when Roman forces wanted to weaken fortifications before sending in infantry. Unlike slower siege engines that required precise setup, the ballista could be positioned strategically on ramparts, siege towers, or even mobile platforms, allowing the Romans to adjust firing positions as the battle unfolded. Its mobility and modular construction meant it could be transported across rugged terrain and quickly assembled at siege sites. The accuracy and destructive power of ballast had a psychological effect as well. Defenders watching massive iron-tipped bolts sail over walls from hundreds of meters away were under constant pressure. This was especially true at fortified towns like Jotapata, where precision fire could target specific gates or defensive positions without exposing Roman soldiers to counterattack. Archaeological evidence, combined with accounts from historians like Josephus, confirms that ballast were central to Roman siege operations, and their efficiency often determined the speed and outcome of assaults. In short, the ballista was more than just a siege engine. It was a highly engineered, versatile, and deadly weapon that combined range, precision, and penetrating power in a way that no ordinary catapult or onager could match. Its deployment reflected both the technical skill of Roman engineers and the strategic thinking of Roman generals. By giving Roman forces the ability to strike accurately from a distance, the ballista played a key role in making Rome's legions one of the most formidable military forces in ancient history. Knowing how powerful a ballista could be is one thing, but how did the Romans actually put it to work in battle? During the siege of Jotapata, the ballista played a central role in the Roman army's assault strategy. Although exact records of how many ballistae were brought to Jotapata don't survive, Josephus describes the Roman army using multiple types of siege engines, including ballistae, to attack the city's fortifications. The ballista's contribution wasn't just in numbers, but in its effectiveness at targeting key defensive points. By firing massive bolts, the Romans could break down sections of the city walls or target defenders positioned on top, clearing the way for infantry assaults. Josephus provides some vivid accounts of the ballista's effect on the defenders. He notes that bolts could penetrate multiple people at once, leaving devastating results for anyone caught in the line of fire. Such precision fire meant that defenders were under constant pressure. They weren't just worried about scaling walls or facing Roman infantry. They had to dodge huge iron or wooden bolts capable of piercing both their shields and their bodies. Evidence of the siege itself is abundant and compelling. Excavators discovered hundreds of iron arrowheads and stone projectiles, clearly showing the intensity of the battle. Many of these projectiles were likely fired from ballistas or catapults, confirming Josephus's descriptions of Roman artillery machines capable of striking at a distance with deadly effect. Human remains were also found, including bones with cut marks, demonstrating the lethal close-quarters combat that occurred. A mass grave contained numerous skeletons, underlining the tragic human cost of the siege. The Romans, known for their engineering skills, also left physical traces. Excavators found remnants of an earthen ramp used to bring siege towers and artillery closer to the walls, along with fragments of caligae, the military sandals worn by legionaries. These findings give us tangible evidence of the systematic way Rome approached sieges, combining engineering, manpower, and technological superiority. These findings indicate that the ballista was repeatedly used to target both walls and defenders, gradually weakening the city's ability to resist. Strategically, ballasts were deployed to maximize their impact. They could be mounted on platforms, siege towers, or mobile frames, allowing Roman engineers to adjust firing positions and angles. This mobility meant that defenders could not find a safe spot on the walls for long as the Romans could reposition ballista to target different sections. In essence, the ballista at Jotapata wasn't just a weapon of destruction. It was a precision instrument that combined firepower and intimidation. It cleared paths for Roman soldiers, demolished key sections of walls, and instilled fear in defenders. Without such siege engines, the Romans would have faced far higher casualties and prolonged conflict. The combination of engineering skill, tactical deployment, and sheer destructive capacity made the ballista a cornerstone of Roman siege warfare, demonstrating why it was regarded as one of their deadliest artillery machines. So, did fear and firepower alone make the ballista the ultimate weapon? During the siege, the Romans didn't rely on a single weapon to break through the city's defenses. Instead, they used a combination of artillery and engineering tools, each with its own purpose and strengths, to systematically weaken the Jewish defenders. Among these, the ballista stood out for its precision and psychological impact. But it wasn't the only tool in their arsenal. The ballista was essentially a massive torsion-powered crossbow that could hurl iron-tipped bolts or heavy stones over long distances. Unlike the onager or catapult, which flung projectiles with a swinging arm or weight, the ballista relied on twisted ropes or sinew to store energy, allowing for more accurate shots. In practical terms, this meant the Romans could target specific points on the walls, or pick off defenders standing on top of the fortifications. Archaeological evidence from Jotapata, the site of ancient Jotapata, includes ballista stones and fragments, which matched Josephus's descriptions of bolts piercing multiple defenders at once. While a single ballista could not bring down a thick stone wall, it could clear the walls, taking out archers and soldiers, so that other siege engines could operate safely. Battering rams were another essential part of the Roman siege toolkit. These heavy logs, often mounted on wheels and sometimes protected under a roof tower, were designed to smash gates and weaker sections of walls. They required the defenders to concentrate their efforts on a specific point, and by repeatedly striking a gate, a battering ram could create an entry point for infantry. For example, historical reconstruction suggests that a standard Roman battering ram could deliver repeated impacts of several hundred pounds of force per swing, enough to compromise wooden gates within hours or days, depending on the defender's reinforcements. Onagers and catapults complemented both the ballista and battering rams. These engines hurled large stones or incendiary projectiles to damage walls, towers, or crowded defensive positions. Though their accuracy was limited compared to ballast, their sheer destructive force could break up defensive formations or create chaos among the defenders. Stones weighing 20 to 50 kilograms could crash into walls and fortifications, weakening structural integrity over time. To get close to the walls safely, the Romans also deployed siege towers. These mobile structures allowed troops to ascend alongside or over the walls while being protected from arrow fire or other missiles. Towers provided platforms for ballast to operate from an elevated position, increasing range and targeting options. In effect, the towers, balisers, and battering rams worked together. The ballista cleared defenders. The onagers softened walls and morale. The towers allowed troops to get close, and the battering rams delivered the final blow. While the ballista was crucial for precision strikes and clearing defenders, it was still part of a coordinated siege strategy. The combination of artillery, protective structures, and heavy impact tools demonstrates how the Romans approached warfare with both engineering skill and tactical planning. Ballast made the walls safer to approach, but didn't make them collapse. Instead, their power lay in precision and intimidation, clearing the way for battering rams and infantry to do the real breaching. The synergy of these weapons turned Jotapata from a heavily defended city into a conquered stronghold in just 47 days. The ballista's real strength lay in its ability to neutralize defenders rather than demolish fortifications. Walls in cities like Jotapata could be several meters thick, built to withstand prolonged sieges. A ballista bolt, even one weighing 20 to 30 kilograms, could penetrate shields and lightly armored troops, but not heavy fortifications. In practical terms, this meant the ballista was excellent for clearing the walls, taking out archers, and lowering morale so that battering rams, siege towers, and other engines could operate safely. Its combination of range, precision, and psychological impact made it a vital part of Roman siege tactics. Beyond Jotapata, the ballista's use illustrates a broader theme in Roman military history: the integration of technology and discipline. Romans repeatedly used ballista in other campaigns, such as the siege of Sada and battles in Germania, showing that they understood the value of engineering and warfare. The weapon became a symbol of how Rome could turn scientific principles into military advantage. Its deployment, combined with coordinated infantry, rams, towers, and other artillery, created a synergistic effect far greater than any single weapon acting alone. In the end, the ballista was neither mythical nor invincible. It did not bring down city walls by itself, and Josephus may have slightly inflated its impact. It's important to remember that Josephus had strong ties to Rome and often emphasized Roman strength. His accounts may have exaggerated the weapon's destructive potential to highlight Roman engineering and discipline. Yet, archaeological findings and tactical analysis confirm it was a highly effective precision weapon that shaped the outcome of sieges. Its true power lay not just in physical destruction, but in strategy, using accuracy, reach, and psychological pressure to make walls vulnerable and defenders fearful. The ballista exemplifies Rome's approach to war, combining science, engineering, and careful planning to achieve overwhelming results. Even centuries later, it stands as a testament to how technology can amplify disciplined military force. So when we ask how powerful was the ballista at Jotapata, the answer is this: it was strong enough to strike fear into an entire city, strong enough to weaken resistance long before the walls fell, and strong enough to earn its reputation as Rome's deadliest artillery machine. Archaeological evidence and written accounts show that Jotapata wasn't just some random skirmish. It was a perfect example of how Roman siege tactics combined engineering, strategy, and political pressure to get results. In other words, the ballista didn't just fire bolts. It fired Rome's message: precision, discipline, and technology could bend any city to its will. And even if its power got a little exaggerated in the stories, there's no doubt it changed the way Rome fought. Its influence went far beyond this one battle, shaping sieges across the empire. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts. Subscribe for more history stories, and thanks for watching. See you tomorrow for the next battle.